Welcome to my YouTube channel. This is your entrepreneurship tutor, Professor Henry Bwisa of Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology in Kenya. Today, I want to talk about bottom-up and top-down approaches in master's and PhD research. Yes, I came across this heading. What is the difference between theory testing and the theory building? This was by Neil Patrick, and this was written in December 2012. What is the difference between theory testing and theory building? This is a long-standing professor who had started his own blog, and at that link, you can read the full article. Now, Patrick asks, essentially, what do graduate students do when they conduct a research investigation? Do they follow specific guidelines in doing their research? Is there a difference between how a master's degree and a doctoral degree student do their research? What are theory testing and theory building? Yes, I thought those were good questions for me to discuss. Now, Patrick asks and then he answers. He says, graduate students research two different ways. A master's degree student engages himself mainly in research primarily aimed toward theory testing, while a doctoral degree student undertakes a much more challenging research task of theory building. But then he goes on to ask, what is the difference between theory testing and the theory building? Then Patrick goes on to explain, theory testing is relatively easier than theory building. Theory testing is primarily applied by the graduate student, as the name suggests, to test whether a particular theory of his choosing is a plausible explanation of a phenomenon he would like to investigate. Then Patrick gives some global warming examples with a video. He gives an explanation of climate change and how it affects the weather, and goes on to quote that link and gives a short video. And then Patrick explains, if you are a master's degree student, you can test the global warming theory by looking into the humidity levels associated with carbon dioxide emissions. That is because it was mentioned that carbon dioxide causes the water to evaporate. More significant, carbon dioxide means more water vapor in the atmosphere measured using a wet and dry bulb thermometer. You will then have to find out if there is a correlation between temperature and surface humidity. Now, this test theory using specific factors to substantiate carbon dioxide effects on global temperature. But then again, Patrick explains, the main focus of theory testing is to find evidence to confirm or refute a theory. In this instance, theory testing tries to find out if there is sufficient evidence to substantiate the anthropogenic global warming theory. But then, Patrick gives some theory building examples. Theory building requires the application of higher level thinking skills compared to theory testing. It says doctoral degrees students or dissertation writers engage in this kind of research. But why is this so? It says the graduate student needs to read, that is a PhD, to read a great deal of literature and gain insights to build the theories. Theory building is the graduate student's or a veteran scientist's attempt to explain something plausible in a different light or perspective. But Patrick seems to be supported in one way or another by other scholars. At this source, we read, theory construction, that's building, is a major element of how science works. Science progresses through a cycle in which ideas and theories are tested by empirical methods and are refined in the light of evidence. Theory construction enables predictions to be made which can be translated into hypotheses and tested empirically. That source. Then somebody explains, well, at that source, in quantitative studies, one uses theory deductively and places it towards the beginning of the proposal for a study, with the objective of testing or verifying a theory rather than developing it. The researcher advances a theory, collects data to test it, and reflects on its confirmation or disconfirmation by the results. Again, that source. And yet another one explains, qualitative research is bottom-up research. It generates a theory based on the data collected rather than testing a theory with the data. That source again, all these are not my words, scholars who are debating, and I am simply, sharing this with you, my students and my colleagues. And now, let us now compare qualitative and quantitative study approaches. There it is. Inductive reasoning, bottom up. We start with an observation. You develop a pattern out of that, what you are observing. Then you make a tentative hypothesis and you build a theory. That is bottom up, inductive reasoning. Deductive reasoning, which is top down. Start with the theory, then hypothesis, then go out in the field, observe, and come and confirm. Now you see, this becomes qualitative research. Qualitative research does not build or use a hypothesis from the beginning in the proposal. But that is quantitative research. You see now the differences between quantitative and qualitative. You can see that qualitative is actually theory building and quantitative is theory testing. But both of them work together, because after the qualitative has built a theory, that theory is taken and it can be now confirmed by quantitative. Hence the bottom up and top down. Now, what lessons have I learned, or is it earned? 1. When universities insist that a title for a PhD research proposal must contain clear variables, then the university is forcing the PhD student to do a quantitative theory testing study, because indeed qualitative study titles may have no variables. Indeed, many universities in their guidelines of how to write a proposal insist that the title, sometimes called the topic, must have clear variables. What we're therefore saying is that our students must always do quantitative studies, and therefore always, test theories, whether at PhD or at master's level. Number 2, when universities insist that a PhD research proposal must contain clear hypotheses, then the university is again forcing the student to do a quantitative theory testing study, because indeed a typical qualitative study is bottom up, as we have seen. It ends with not starting with the hypothesis. So this is what we are saying, that our PhD students and master students, they are all doing research, but probably it would pay to show those difference between masters and PhD right into the research and research approaches. So if you asked me, I would say PhD students should be encouraged and motivated to do theory building more than theory testing researches. This then places emphasis on qualitative research approaches that use data analysis methods that include grounded theory, content analysis, and so forth and so on. This is lacking in many universities, including my own, where data analysis methods are all quantitative, all theory, hypothesis testing, and all that. Let me give an example from my field. In Africa, and indeed globally, certain ethnic groups are thought to be more entrepreneurial than others in their respective countries. In Kenya, for a long time, the Kikuyus were thought so. But recently, it has been observed that entrepreneurship among the Kisii is fast developing. Here is a case for a qualitative study, although a quantitative study could also be undertaken. You know, it's not enough just to look at factors that affect entrepreneurial growth. We could also come up with some theories. Why? What's the theory behind the, let's say, entrepreneurial growth among the Kisis? You know, an assessment of the contributing factors that lead to failed rural industrialization is yet another good example of a qualitative study, even if it could also be done quantitatively. You see, when you approach it quantitatively, something like that, you imagine hypotheses even before you go in the field, and you are limited to those hypotheses, trying to prove what you could actually leave out many other factors. You go out in an exploratory approach, then you gather all that data, and then you'll build up some theory. That therefore seems to fly in the face of people who think that qualitative exploratory research is for masters, not for PhD. We have seen the contrary. It is theory building, and theory building is more more, aligned, not aligned, more preferred, if you wanted me to say so, for PhD than masters. You have seen Patrick telling us that to come up with a theory, it needs really heavy literature, reading, using logic to bring up. So it is, more applicable at PhD than at masters. Although, indeed, at both levels, masters or PhD, we can still do both. However, in my own university, in many universities in Kenya, qualitative studies, particularly in the social sciences, qualitative studies are at minimum. So, if you enjoyed this, please like it, share it, and subscribe for more. But maybe you wish to support us, bring you more, then you could as well donate. That is, if you so wish. If you wish to support us, donate. Just visit that website and the donation guidance will be given. But if you just want to throw in a coin or so, buy good steel number 547-6465. That will help us do more research and share with you more information. So, have a bottoms up day, won't you? Thank you.